Hey, is anybody there? Hello. Hey, Judy. Glad you're here. Sorry I was a minute late. Actually, I have to get this phone on my gimbal stand. I was trying to do this on my laptop, and Microsoft closed on me. It just said no more. I don't know what's wrong, except I know that I do need a new laptop. So anyway, let me get my little gimbal thing going, and then we'll get to trivia. I should do an introduction for those who will be watching this later. Um, Hi, I'm Sharon, Day Lady. Yeah, I'm bouncing all over the place, but hold on. You'll have smooth sailing in moments. I just whoops, I forgot the other piece. I just need to get this baby hooked up for a minute here. Um, I can't believe my laptop isn't cooperating. I'll tell you what, it's always something. Anyway, so here I am, Bay Lady. This is supposed to be Beatles trivia, and it will be. I promise. It's just gonna take me a minute because I wanted to use my laptop because I got a new camera for it and it was pretty cool. And I wanted to see if it was better than muscle if it's better than this camera. So hang on here, and we'll be good to go in a minute. Get in there. All right. Turn this puppy on. Ah, alrighty, there it is. Doesn't know which way it should go. This way. Hey, Martin. I'm not. I wonder why not. I'm supposed to be on Twitter too, and I gave Facebook as the correct destination too on the Hago Guides page. All right, hang on here. I've almost got this together. Mm, okay. Put this on the edge here next to my laptop that let me down. Yes, indeed. Oh yeah, it says I just got a message. It does say errors on some of my destinations, so I don't know what that means, but I have to find out because this happened once before, I think, and it's interesting because Facebook is always the first one that I do. That's like the main, the main thing, the main one, and then after that is YouTube, and then Twitter. And to be honest, I've never seen Twitter on here. I don't know that they can even do comments or see comments. I don't know. It's all new to me. Hey, Ronnie Lynn. Okay, so Ronnie Lynn, Judy, and Martin. Hey, guys. Ready for some Beatles trivia? Okay. All right. So this time we are up to chapter 4 in this book. I kind of like this book because it has good questions and then it has those facts at the end, all that information. So if you didn't know it before, you know it now. So that still works, right? Yeah, right. Okay, so albums and record deals is the title of this chapter, chapter 4, albums and record deals. Okay, here we go. Number 1 question. What was the name of the German-British record label that first signed the Beatles when they were recording as a backup band? Okay, what's the name of the German-British label that signed the Beatles before they were famous? Was it A, Parlophone, B, Decca Records, C, Polydor Records, or D, Impression Recordings. So Parlophone, Decca, Polydor, or Impression Recordings. I haven't any clue. I would have guessed. What confused me is the that it's a German British record label. I probably didn't need to know that. I would have said Decca too. Yeah, Decca. Okay, B is Decca, yeah, or C, Polydor. Okay, Decca or Polydor. All right, let's go back and find it. Oops. Polydor is the answer. C, Polydor. Okay, which record company famously rejected the Beatles, telling their manager, guitar groups are on their way out, Mr. Epstein? Guitar groups are on their way out, Mr. Epstein. Okay, so who rejected them? Was it A, Parlophone, B, Decca, C, Polydor Records, or D, EMI Records? So Parlophone, Decca, Polydor, or EMI? Which? Yeah, we got it. Which one do you suppose? Somebody who rejected them. Guitar groups are on their way out, Mr. Epstein. Boy, I bet he was eating his words at some point. Okay, Mike says D, EMI Records. Anybody else? Oh, okay. Everybody said D, EMI Records. All right. And the answer is not D. It's B, Decca. It's Decca Records. Oh, wow. Now, I could have sworn they had some things on the Decca label, but now they were, weren't they primarily on the Capitol label, Capitol Records, or that was the label, their label here for the U.S. releases, because they were always different than the U.K. I wonder what the UK's is. I'm just playing with this, China. Trying to make myself centered. I don't know why. Okay, question number 3. The self-titled album, The Beatles, was given which nickname because of the color of its cover? Okay, The Beatles was given which nickname because of the color of its cover? Was it A, the Black Album, B, the White Album, C, the Blue Album, or D, the Red Album? Black, white, blue, or red? Gee, wonder which one that could be. The White Album, of course. I don't even have to look, but I will. Yep, B, the White Album. Okay, question number 4 over here. George Martin was the producer for which record label when he signed the Beatles at Abbey Road Studios in 1962? So George Martin was the producer for which record label in 1962 when he signed the Beatles at Abbey Road Studios? Anybody ever been to Abbey Road? I did. I went there. Oh my God. Dream of a lifetime. Got to do it again. So the answers to choose from are A, Polydor Records, B, Parlophone Records, C, Apple Records, or D, Decca Records. So George Martin worked for which one when he signed the Beatles? Polydor, Parlophone, Apple, or Decca? I don't know this one. I'm clueless. No clue. I bet you guys. No, yes. The other reason I was trying to get this on my laptop and had just rebooted it is because the screen on the laptop gives you more information. Like it would have told me that there was a problem with Facebook. You know, I would have gotten a message. So because it like it keeps score, and I was surprised to see that it included Twitter too, all three, because on my phone it only shows um, Facebook and YouTube. So I don't know. Okay, back to the game. A or C? Okay, so A is Polydor or C Apple Records that George Martin was producing for. Okay, the answer is B, Parlophone. Huh, I don't recall really hearing of Parlophone. I mean, I've heard of Polydor and Decca, and of course, Apple and EMI and all that stuff, and but not Parlophone, but that's where he worked. See, we learned something new playing these fun little games. It's educational. George, let's see, good old George. All right, so the Beatles' debut album, mostly recorded in a single 13-hour session, was which of the following? So their debut album, their first album that was recorded in one marathon 13-hour session, was it A, with the Beatles, B, Beatles for Sale, C, A Hard Day's Night, or D, Please Please Me? With the Beatles, Beatles for Sale, Hard Day's Night, and Please Please Me. I know, we know probably, let's see. Oh man, I don't know. You know what? What did you all say? Judy's got A, and so does Mark. Or is that from the last round? With the Beatles. Okay. And let's see. Ronnie Lynn says D, and you guys say C. I'm saying D. Judy, what you got? Are you C? Let's see what the answer is. Okay. 5. It is D. Please please me. Please please me. Okay, number 6. Following their debut album, which Beatles LP sold 500,000 copies in 1 week, knocking its predecessor off the top of the charts? That's an accomplishment. Following the debut album, which Beatles LP sold 500,000 copies in 1 week, knocking its predecessor off the top of the charts? The choices are A, with the Beatles, B, Beatles for Sale, C, A Hard Day's Night, and D, Please Please Me. Exactly the same answers as the question we just did. So on their debut album, after their debut album, which one knocked their socks off? With the Beatles, Beatles for Sale, A Hard Day's Night, or Please Please Me? I'm going to say it's not Please Please Me because that was the answer to the last one, although I wouldn't put it past. Anyway, I don't know what to say. I'm going to say Beatles for Sale. I'm going to say B. Yeah, I'm going to say B. What you guys think? B, Beatles for Sale. Though it could be with the Beatles, but I think it's Beatles for Sale. B for me. Do believe. Hmm. All right. Ready? We got a D, and a couple of C's. All right. So the answer is, which album sold 1 million copies like in a week? With the Beatles. A. Huh. Okay. With the Beatles. Oh, well, okay. Number 7. Which of the Beatles albums was the first to be entirely written by Lennon and McCartney? Okay, which Beatles album has been entirely written by Lennon and McCartney? Was it Revolver, Rubber Soul, With the Beatles, or A Hard Day's Night? The one that was written entirely by Lennon and McCartney. No contributions from George or Ringo. Was it A, Revolver? That was a good album too. B, Rubber Soul? That was a good album too. C, With the Beatles? I don't remember which one that was. And D, A Hard Day's Night? I remember. So Martin says Rubber Soul. I am going to say, D, A Hard Day's Night. Ronnie Lynn, what you got? Ronnie Lynn says Rubber Soul too. That is such a good album, Rubber Soul. Oh my goodness. I love Norwegian Wood. Isn't that on Rubber Soul? Oh well. Anyway, okay. So which of the albums was, oh okay, Judy says Revolver. That was when they first started getting into the George George with his sitar and the Indian influence on their music from India. Anywho, okay, so which was to be written entirely by them? Answer is D, A Hard Day's Night. A Hard Day's Night was written entirely by them. Do you think it was because they I guess they knew it was gonna, I mean, they did it as a soundtrack for the movie, so maybe they just wanted since it was gonna be a movie, maybe they just wanted two people to have bragging rights, Lennon and McCartney, kind of like oh my goodness, who was a songwriting team, oh man, I can't think of one. Uh, Crap. Oh, Rogers and Hammerstein, right? Rogers and Hammerstein. They did a lot of plays and movies, yeah. So maybe me, and they were hot back then, probably. So maybe that's what was the logic behind that. Question number 8. Establishing this trend for future artists, which Beatles album was the first rock and roll album to include the lyrics on the cover sleeve? Yeah, that's an interesting question. Establishing the trend for future artists, which Beatles album was the first rock album to include the lyrics on the cover sleeve? Was it A, Yellow Submarine, B, Sergeant Pepper, C, The Beatles, or D, Abbey Road? Which tick, tick, tock, tick. Okay, playing again. Sorry. Maybe I have OCD. I don't know. Okay, so which one was the very first to put the lyrics on the sleeve? Yellow Submarine, A, B, Sergeant Pepper, C, The Beatles, and D, Abbey Road. Well, for starters, wait a minute, Yellow Submarine wasn't an album. It was on an album, right? True? Yes. Okay, so which one? Abbey Road, Yellow Submarine, Sergeant Pepper. All right, you guys. Each one picked one. I think it was Sergeant Pepper because for some reason when they said that, I can see the album, the front. I mean, who doesn't know Sergeant Pepper? But on the inside, when you opened it up, there were all the lyrics and against a red background, I believe. It kind of like jumped out and bit you. Okay, so anyway, let's find out, right? Question number 8. Answer is Sergeant Pepper. B. It was Sergeant Pepper. Okay, next. Question 9. Under VJ Records, never heard of that one. VJ, VEE-JAY. Under VJ Records, which was the first Beatles studio album to be released in the US 10 days before Capitol's album release? Well, that's confusing. Under VJ's Records, which was the first studio album to be released in the US 10 days before Capitol's album release? Was it A, Introducing the Beatles, B, With the Beatles, C, Meet the Beatles, or D, Beatles for Sale? A, Introducing the Beatles, With the Beatles, Meet the Beatles, or Beatles for Sale? I think C. I think Meet the Beatles. There was a photo of the four on the inside. Oh, the lyrics were on the back cover. Was it red? I don't know why. I just have this image of red and print, right? Okay, so C, C, and B. All right, those are the guesses, C, C, and B. I'm going to say C, Meet the Beatles, because I think that was the first album I ever got. Now, whether it was the first to come out, let's find out. Let's find out. Number 9. Ooh, A, Introducing the Beatles. I never saw that one. I don't recall that one, Introducing the Beatles. I thought Meet the Beatles was the first. It probably was the first Capitol release. Question number 10 is a true or false. EMI Studios in London changed its name to Abbey Road Studios because of the success of the album of the same name. True or false? EMI in London changed its name to Abbey Road Studios because of the success of the album of the same name. True or false? What y'all think? I don't know. Did they do that? Did they change to Abbey Road Studios? Weren't the student, I don't know, wasn't EMI the company that lived at Abbey Road Studios? Right? I don't know. I don't know. Shall we see? We got 2 trues and a false. Well, I'll do a true. So now we're split down the middle. True, true, false, false. And let's see, number 10. And the trues have it. It's true. That was true. I didn't know that. Question 11. Although not the last album to be recorded, which was the last album released by the Beatles in 1970? Was it A, Abbey Road, B, Sergeant Pepper, C, Let It Be, or D, The Beatles? Their last album to be recorded. Although not one, but not the last album to be recorded, but the last one released in 1970. Got to be between Abbey Road and Let It Be. Yeah, between Abbey Road and Let It Be. Let's find out, you guys. See, Let It Be. Let it be, be, be. Let it be. Okay, everybody says let it be. C. All right, number 11. Yep, C. Let it be. We got it. Woo. Okay, number 12. Which Beatles album cover is one of the most famous and frequently imitated images in popular music? Hopefully, it's not the nudist one on, that they recalled on the Beatles. Which album cover is one of the most famous and frequently imitated images in popular music? Is it Revolver, Abbey Road, Let It Be, or Sergeant Pepper? A. Revolver, B. Abbey Road, C. Let It Be, and D. Sergeant Pepper. I want to say Abbey Road. Abbey Road B. That's my final answer. Let's see. Ronnie Lynn's got C. Let It Be. Martin's got D. Sergeant Pepper. I like Sergeant Pepper. That was a fun album. Especially at the time, it was probably more fun than it is today because it was such a big part of the culture at the time. And Ronnie Lynn says Abbey Road. All right, let's find out. Ooh, Sergeant Pepper. Really? No, wait a minute. 12, is that right? Which be Sergeant Pepper. I would have never guessed that. Okay, so who imitated Sergeant Pepper's cover? I mean, that was the cover with all the movie stars and other musicians, all those people and the Beatles dressed up in those um satiny band uniforms and stuff. Wow. I wouldn't have thought that. I thought Abbey Road because people pretend to cross Abbey Road. They when they go to visit it, sightseers, tourists, right? They'll, assume the positions of the four people crossing. Frank Zappa did? Really? Oh, I can believe. I suppose I can. Well, yeah, that would be right up Zappa's alley because he was very prone to the psychedelic images and such. So, okay, well, very interesting at any rate. Okay, question number 13. Another true or false. The Beatles Revolver album took over 700 hours to record. Wow, that's a lot. 700 hours. Oh my God, I can't do the math. True or false? 700 hours to record Revolver. Well, what do you think? Look, was that for his album? We're only in it for the money. Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. I have to check that out. I'm sure I can Google it online. I'd like to see that actually. Yeah. So 700 hours for Revolver. Was it 700 hours because they were disagreeing? Had they got into arguing then back then with Revolver? Because they were like with Let It Be and all, weren't they, during the filming? So would y'all think false? Oh, everybody says false. Okay. All right, let's see. 13. False. Very good. It was false. Woohoo. 14. Which album featured a distinctive sleeve design created by Klaus Bormann, a friend from the Beatles' days in Hamburg? Which hamburger? Which album featured a distinctive sleeve design created by Klaus Bormann, a friend from the Beatles' days in Hamburg? Was it A, Revolver, B, Sergeant Pepper, C, Rubber Soul, or D, Magical Mystery Tour? So Revolver, Sergeant Pepper, Rubber Soul, or Magical Mystery Tour. I say Revolver. I say Revolver. So does Martin A. Judy, Ronnie Lynn, what say you? Ladies. The other reason I was trying to do this on my laptop is I was going to try. I haven't done it, but there's a way that I can invite you guys to be on the screen, and all of us can be like seeing and hearing each other. You know, I have to figure it out though. Revolver, yeah. Let's see. All right. I mean, yeah. Let's see, 14. All right. Yep, a Revolver. Revolver was the album sleeve designed by Klaus Forman. Wasn't he? Yeah, he wasn't he was in the band for a little bit. Or am I oh no, I'm thinking of Stuart Sutcliffe. Klaus went to art school with John Lennon, I think. Number 15. As George, oh, as George Harrison became interested in Indian music and culture, he debuted his sitar playing on which album in 1965? Oh my goodness, wasn't I starting to talk about that? And the album I thought it was isn't on here. Okay. George Harrison first debuted his sitar in 1965 on which album? Was it A, Help, B, Yellow Submarine, C, Let It Be, or D, Rubber Soul? 1965. Help, Yellow Submarine, Let It Be, or Rubber Soul? Wow. 1965. Help, Yellow Submarine, Let It Be, or Rubber Soul? What you guys think? I think, trying to think what first song it would be. Couldn't have been Rubber Soul. I think that was too early. Help. It was Help. It was Help. A Help. Because the music was in the movie too. The Indian music. Remember, it was in the movie because they were trying to get that ring off of Ringo's finger, and that was the kind of music that they were playing, like in that restaurant, right? Okay, so we got Rubber Soul all the way. D. Okay, let's see. Number 15. D, Rubber Soul. Whoa, very good, guys. Rubber Soul it is. 16. Which Beatles album was the soundtrack for an animated feature film of the same name? Was it A, Yellow Submarine, B, Magical Mystery Tour, C, The Beatles, or D, Please Please Me? Which soundtrack became an animated feature film? Yellow Submarine, Magical Mystery Tour, The Beatles, or Please Please Me? My vote is for Yellow Submarine. Yep, Yellow Submarine. All righty. And the answer is, whoops, why are we even going through these quick? Yellow Submarine, A. Really good. Yellow Submarine. Question 17. Because the band was at odds, who did the Beatles bring in to piece together the album Let It Be? Because they were at odds, who did they bring in to save the Let It Be album, to piece it all together? Was it A, Johnny Cash, B, Phil Spector, C, Quincy Jones, or D, Eric Clapton? Johnny Cash, Phil Spector, Quincy Jones, or Eric Clapton? I loved it too. I say Quincy Jones too. No, wait. I say Phil Spector. Phil Spector and the Wall of Sound, right? Gandhi. You go, Ronnie. D, Phil Spector. Let's see. And yes, B, Phil Spector. Okay, two more. Number 18, true or false? All of the Beatles albums only featured their original music and songs. True or false? All of their albums only featured their original music and songs. True or false? I say false. Because they did covers too. Oh, they did. Oh my goodness. Till There Was You. Roll Over Beethoven. John didn't write that. He sung it though. Oh my goodness. Okay. So the answer is false. That is not true. Last question, number 19. The Beatles are positioned in a flag semaphore of 4 letters on the cover of which album? The Beatles are positioned, okay, in a close to 4 letters on the cover of which album? Huh? That doesn't make any sense. A, Yellow Submarine. B, Rubber Soul. C, Help. Or D, Sergeant Pepper. I'm going to guess C, Help. Help. They're kind of semaphore, whatever. Yeah, Help. That's my guess, and I'm sticking to it. And I haven't looked to see what the answer is. So, Help C. So does Ronnie and Martin and Judy. Where are you? Help. All right. And that is correct. It is Help. Ta-da! Another successful chapter completed. Now, we're not done. What time is it? Not that it matters. Oh, I'm running a little late, huh? You guys care? I was going to read that. Well, I was late starting too, but I was just taking my time enjoying this. Do you guys can you hang out? Do you want me to read the Do You Know facts? So, yes, no, I'll start reading them. You guys can stay if you like. Okay. Please Please Me was the Beatles' debut album in the UK and was mostly recorded in one 13-hour long recording session. 10 out of the 14 tracks were recorded in that session. It was produced by EMI's Parlophone label. Well, I didn't see that coming. Under George Martin and released on March 22nd, 1963. On November 22nd, 1963, exactly 8 months after the Beatles' debut album release, With the Beatles premiered and replaced its predecessor at the top of the British chart. Some of the songs on it were featured in Introducing the Beatles, the first LP the band released in the US. Parlophone was an imprint of EMI, which stands for Electrical and Musical Industries, a multi-industry company founded in London. EMI's American label at the time was Capitol Records. Okay. Initially, Capitol Records was reluctant to release Beatles records in the US, and VJ Records of Chicago beat them to the punch with the releasing of Introducing the Beatles on January 10th, 1964. 10 days later, Capitol Records released the album Meet the Beatles. Well, that was interesting. Wow. Right. You got that right. Couldn't have. Beatlemania. Oh, sorry. Prior to A Hard Day's Night, the Beatles albums had been a combination of original songs and covers. Released on July 10th, 1964, A Hard Day's Night is the first Beatles album to feature all original songs and music, and the only one to be written entirely by Lennon and McCartney. Beatlemania was at its peak in 1964, which demanded a hectic performing and touring schedule for the band. Released on December 4th, 1964, Beatles for Sale contains 8 tracks of original compositions, and the remaining 6 are covers. The original songs introduced moodier, sophisticated lyrics along with ventures into studio experimentation. Help is the 5th studio album of the Beatles and was also the soundtrack to a movie of the same name. It was first released in the UK on August 6, 1965, under Parlophone, and then 7 days later in the US under Capitol. Released on December 3rd, 1965, Rubber Soul was the first album the band was able to record without any film, radio, or concert commitments at the same time. The title is a pun referring to the soles of shoes and was inspired by a critic who judged that the Rolling Stones were good but plastic sole. Get that. On August 5th, 1966, the Beatles released Revolver. Later that month, they would play their final concert before retiring from touring. This album is recognized for its overuse of studio technology, music styles, and psychedelic content. The legendary Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band is regarded as an early concept album that brought recognition to albums as an art form. The album's cover features 58 iconic individuals, such as Albert Einstein, Shirley Temple, Marilyn Monroe, Bob Dylan, and Edgar Allan Poe. Magical Mystery Tour is an additional soundtrack album to a television film of the same name. It continued the band's exploration of psychedelic sounds and studio experimentation. The self-titled album, The Beatles, is more often referred to as the White Album. Released on November 2nd, 1968 under Apple Records, its plain white sleeve directly and intentionally contrasted with their earlier exuberant album artwork. Most of the songs on this album were written while the Beatles were studying meditation in India. To the Beatles, Yellow Submarine was largely filling a contractual obligation to supply new songs for the animated film. Released in the US first on January 13th, 1969, this album contains 6 tracks from the Beatles, 4 of them new. The remaining tracks are recordings of the score of the film, which was written by George Martin. Named after the location of what was at the time EMI Studios, the cover of Abbey Road features the famous image of the Beatles walking across Abbey Road in London. It was released on September 26, 1969 by Apple Records, but it was recorded after sessions for their final album release, Let It Be. Let It Be, the final studio album released by the Beatles, was released on May 8, 1970, after the group's breakup. It was originally titled Get Back and was reassembled by American producer Phil Spector after the project had been abandoned. So, there you have it, my friends. Look at that. We did good. We learned a lot today, don't you think? So I don't have one of these scheduled, but I will schedule another one in in the next few weeks. I'm always going to keep it on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. So um, you know, you can I'm posting it, of course, you know, on the Hago ex Hago guides database, and also on YouTube and on Facebook. So, anywho, all right, you guys take care, and I'll see you next time.